What courage really is. When we think of courage, the image that usually comes to mind is someone fearless, someone who never feels fear, who faces challenges without hesitation. Heroes in movies, unbeatable athletes, leaders who seem unshakable. But this idea is far from the truth. Courage is not the absence of fear, courage is acting despite the fear. It's feeling that knot in your stomach, that insecurity tightening your chest, and still choosing to move forward. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the conscious decision not to let fear control you. Fear is a natural emotion, an essential defense mechanism for human survival. Since ancient times, it has protected us from danger and threats. Fear activates a series of reactions in our brain that prepare us to flee, fight, or freeze when facing danger. However, in our modern life, many fears are based on imagined or exaggerated risks, and can become a block that prevents our growth and the achievement of our dreams. Excessive fear is not the enemy, it's a signal that needs to be understood and transformed. True courage is born from accepting that fear. Not by trying to ignore it or pretending it doesn't exist, but by acknowledging its presence and still deciding to move forward. It's like an athlete who feels fear of injury, failure, or defeat, yet chooses to keep running. Courage is a muscle that strengthens only through constant practice. The more you practice acting despite fear, the more natural it becomes to overcome insecurities. But why is it so hard to act when we feel fear? Because fear is tied to a complex network of limiting beliefs and negative thoughts rooted deeply over time. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I'm not capable? What if I regret it? These questions create anxiety that can become paralyzing, building a mental barrier that blocks progress and decision-making. This paralysis is what we call the comfort zone, a mental and emotional space where we feel safe, even if that safety is an illusion. Leaving the comfort zone requires conscious effort, courage, and a firm decision, the decision to face fear and not surrender to it. This can be uncomfortable and even scary, but it's necessary for true growth. So, how do we start acting in the face of what scares us? The first step is awareness. Observe your fears, name them, understand their roots. Often, they come from past experiences, family conditioning, or social and cultural influences. Bringing those fears into the light of awareness reduces their invisible power over you. Moving from unconscious to conscious fear is the beginning of freedom. Also, it's essential to change your internal narrative. Instead of asking, "Why do I feel fear?" ask, "What can I learn from this fear?" This simple shift transforms fear from enemy to ally, a signal that you are about to grow, that you are touching something important. It creates a new perspective on difficulties and opens the path to solutions. Another crucial point is redefining failure. Many people have a paralyzing fear of making mistakes because they associate failure with something negative, permanent, and humiliating. But failure is not the end of the road, it's just part of the learning process. It's valuable feedback, an indication that something can be adjusted so the next attempt is better. Great inventors, writers, and leaders went through many trials and errors before achieving success. When we look at the stories of great leaders, artists, scientists, and entrepreneurs we admire, we realize they are not examples of fearlessness. On the contrary, they felt fear countless times and still persisted. They developed the courage to keep going despite the fear, learned from every step, grew from every fall, and never gave up moving forward. Another important aspect of courage is vulnerability. True courage is not just external bravery but also the ability to show weakness, admit doubts, and be human. This authenticity opens doors to deeper connections and genuine inner growth. Courage is accepting imperfection, it's being transparent with yourself and others. Therefore, stopping running away from fear and starting to act despite it is an invitation to reconnect with your inner strength. Courage is a continuous process of choice, choosing to move forward, choosing to expose yourself, choosing to be true to yourself. It's a daily invitation to do what you fear and discover that within that action you find freedom, power, and transformation. In this script, we will explore together how to develop that courage in practice, how to turn fear into fuel for action, unlock your potential, and move towards a more authentic and fulfilling life. Because the freedom you seek begins when you decide to face what you fear, and keep going, even without guarantees. Understanding fear, what it really is. Before moving forward to face what you fear, it is essential to understand what fear really is. Many people see fear as an enemy, something that must be eliminated. But this view is simplistic and even counterproductive. Fear is not the problem is how we react to it. Fear is a natural, ancient emotion that is part of our survival mechanism. It arose to protect us from real and immediate dangers, such as predators and physical threats. Our primitive brain is programmed to activate fear when it perceives a threat, preparing the body to fight or flee, the so-called survival instinct. In modern times, real dangers are rare, but fear remains active, now linked to internal, social, and emotional challenges. For example, fear of judgment, failure, the unknown, or rejection. These fears often do not represent real threats to physical life but rather perceived threats to our emotional safety and identity. That is why courage is not the absence of fear but the ability to act despite it. It is recognizing that fear is present, accepting its existence, and deciding that what is at stake is more important than the unpleasant feeling of fear. When we feel fear, our body responds in various ways: heart races, breathing becomes shallow, muscles tense. These reactions are normal because the body is preparing for a quick response. However, what makes things difficult is when we let fear take control of the mind, paralyzing action and amplifying anxiety. It is important to realize that fear is a messenger, not an enemy. It tells us that we are about to leave the comfort zone, a safe but limited place. The comfort zone keeps us protected but also prevents growth and expansion. Outside of it, there are uncertainties, challenges, and risks, but also incredible opportunities. Often, fear is born from distorted thoughts, from stories we create about the future or ourselves. Questions like, what if I fail, what if they reject me, or, what if I'm not good enough, create a cycle of doubts and anxiety that can trap us. The key to breaking this cycle is to look at fear with curiosity, not judgment. Instead of running away or denying fear, ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling? What story am I telling myself? Is this story based on facts or just assumptions? When we slow down and examine fear, it loses some of its frightening power. It stops being a monster and becomes a sensation that can be welcomed, understood, and even used to support our growth. Courage, then, is a conscious choice. It is the act of deciding to act even in the presence of fear. It is accepting that vulnerability is part of the process, that making mistakes is part of the journey, and that growth happens outside the comfort zone. Another important point is to remember that fear is temporary. It arises, makes an impact, but with time it disappears, especially if we don't feed it with catastrophic thoughts or avoidance. Each time we face a fear, we train the brain to respond better, creating new neural connections, a true exercise for courage. When you begin to see fear as an ally that signals you are moving forward, fear stops being a block and becomes a thermometer, a sign that you are on the right path. In this process, self-compassion is a fundamental ingredient. Acknowledge your limits, celebrate small advances, and forgive your mistakes. Creating a welcoming internal environment fosters transformation and strengthens courage. Finally, remember that courage is not a permanent state. It fluctuates, grows, and diminishes, and that's okay. The important thing is to persist, even on days when fear feels strongest. In the next part, we will explore practical strategies to act with courage, even when fear seems to dominate. Acting with courage, the first step to overcome fear. Now that you understand what fear is and how it works, the fundamental question remains: how do you act even when fear is present? How do you find the courage to take the first step when your heart races, your mind whispers that it's better not to try, and your body feels that almost paralyzing freeze? The secret lies in action, even if it's small. Courage isn't a heroic impulse that comes out of nowhere or a state of fearlessness. It is actually a series of conscious decisions, a daily commitment to move forward, even with fear as a constant companion. Imagine you're standing in front of a stage, about to give an important presentation. Your body is tense, your hands sweat, anxiety tightens your chest. Maybe you want to run away, cancel everything, make an excuse. But you choose to take one step at a time. First, take a deep, mindful breath. Then, repeat mentally a phrase that strengthens you, like, "I can do this. I've been here before, and I can go beyond." And with this small inner preparation, you step onto the stage. That first movement, no matter how small it seems, is where courage is born. It is in the action, even if hesitant, that fear begins to lose control and becomes just a feeling, not a prison. When you stop overthinking and start acting, your mind and body align. You discover an inner strength you may not have known you had, a strength that only shows up when we face what scares us. But acting with courage doesn't mean ignoring fear or pretending it doesn't exist. On the contrary, it means feeling the fear, acknowledging its presence, and still deciding to move forward. It's an act of self-love and respect for your own life, because you choose not to be limited by a passing emotion, by a fear that, if left in charge, could steal many possibilities. Another powerful strategy for acting with courage is gradual planning. Breaking the challenge into smaller, manageable steps helps reduce the feeling of overwhelm and threat that fear often imposes. If fear seems like an insurmountable giant, breaking it down makes the path more accessible, more human. For example, if your fear is public speaking, the first step might be practicing alone in front of a mirror, then speaking to a trusted friend, then to a small group, until the discomfort lessens and confidence grows. Each small victory strengthens your courage and builds a solid foundation for bigger challenges. This process not only makes fear less scary but transforms fear into learning and growth. Additionally, surrounding yourself with support is essential on this journey. People who believe in you, who celebrate your efforts, and who offer encouragement are fuel for courage. Seeking mentors, support groups, or even talking with honest friends helps maintain focus and motivation, because the path of growth doesn't have to be walked alone. Remember that failure is part of the process and that there is no courage without risk, nor risk without the possibility of mistakes. When you accept that making mistakes is normal, that failure is a natural and necessary step of learning, fear loses some of its oppressive weight. This acceptance brings freedom to act more lightly. A practical exercise that helps a lot is writing down your worries, fears, and possible outcomes, both positive and negative. By putting everything on paper, you take away the power of the unknown, making fears more concrete and therefore more manageable. This also helps organize emotions and think of real solutions. Another widely used technique is positive visualization. Imagine yourself facing the challenge successfully, feeling satisfaction, pride, and the security of having overcome fear. This mental image prepares your brain to act with more confidence, creating a state of positive expectation that can drive action. And when fear insists on appearing, practice self-affirmation. Phrases like, "I am capable," "I am enough," "I can handle this," reinforce a mindset of courage and self-confidence. Repeating these affirmations, especially in moments of doubt, creates a more positive and empowering inner dialogue. Remember, courage is a muscle that strengthens with use. The more you practice acting despite fear, the easier it becomes to face future challenges. And every step taken, even with hesitation, is a significant victory that deserves to be celebrated. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to keep moving forward despite it. Finally, it is important to recognize your progress. Don't minimize your achievements, even if they seem small to others. Every act of courage, every moment you choose to act instead of retreat, builds a new story, a story where you are the protagonist of your life, not the victim of circumstances. This new mindset, based on conscious action and acceptance of fear, opens doors to growth and profound transformation. In the next part, we will explore how to handle setbacks and keep courage alive, even when fear comes back strong and tries to knock us down. Setbacks and resilience, how to keep courage alive when fear returns. The journey of courage is not a straight line, nor a sequence of uninterrupted victories. It is, rather, a path full of ups and downs, advances and setbacks, days of confidence and moments when fear seems stronger than ever. And that's okay, it's part of the human process. Understanding that setbacks are natural is fundamental to avoid sabotaging yourself when they appear. Many people believe that feeling intense fear or backing down from a challenge means they have failed or lack courage. Nothing could be further from the truth. True courage includes recognizing that fear can return, and that this is not a sign of weakness, but rather that you are living a real and deep experience. Imagine courage as a flame that needs constant tending. It can weaken, seem to flicker, but with the right care, you can rekindle it. The first step is self-compassion. Be kind to yourself in difficult moments. Instead of criticizing yourself for having a setback, ask what you can learn from that experience. What is this fear trying to show you? What part of you still needs care? Often, setbacks happen because we face emotional triggers or situations that haven't been fully processed yet. Fear can manifest more intensely when we feel vulnerable, tired, or pressured. In those times, self-observation is a powerful tool. Noticing what's happening inside without judgment allows you to better understand your responses and prepare to face them. Another essential strategy to keep courage alive is establishing routines and habits that strengthen your mental and emotional well-being. Practices like meditation, physical exercise, journaling, adequate sleep, and balanced nutrition create a solid foundation so you have more resources to deal with fear and anxiety when they arise. Additionally, cultivating a support network is crucial. Talking to people who understand your journey, who don't judge, and who offer sincere encouragement helps lighten the weight of fear and renew your motivation. No one needs to be courageous alone. Sharing your difficulties and achievements builds connections that strengthen courage. When fear returns strongly, it's worth remembering previous victories. Looking back and recognizing all the times you acted despite fear reinforces confidence in yourself. Each step taken is a brick building a solid path, not a stumble that invalidates the journey. If anxiety or emotional paralysis become very intense, seeking professional help, such as therapy, is also an act of courage and self-care. A therapist can help identify patterns, work through old traumas, and offer tools to better handle fear. It's also important to constantly practice positive affirmations and visualize success. Even in moments of doubt, repeating phrases like, "I am capable of facing my fears," and "every challenge is an opportunity to grow," can shift your mental state, making fear less threatening and courage more accessible. Another point to consider is that courage doesn't have to be grand or spectacular. It can, and should, be found in small daily actions, saying no when something doesn't feel right, asking for help when needed, expressing your opinion honestly, trying something new even if it gives you butterflies. These small acts of courage accumulate and create a transformative effect in your life. They show you are committed to your growth, willing to step out of your comfort zone, even if it means feeling fear. Finally, be patient with yourself. Growth is a gradual process, and courage is a muscle that strengthens over time. There will be hard days, moments of doubt, perhaps even the desire to give up. But each time you choose to keep going, even with fear, you become stronger, more resilient, more alive. The important thing is not to give up on the journey. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but the conscious decision to act despite it. And that decision is yours, every day, in every small choice. In the next and final part, we will talk about how courage transforms not only your life but also how you see yourself and relate to the world. Courage that transforms, a new perspective on yourself and the world. Throughout this journey, you have learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Now, it is time to understand how this courage, cultivated day by day, profoundly transforms your relationship with yourself and the world around you. When you choose to face your fears, even the small ones, something begins to change within you. A new respect for yourself emerges, a recognition of your inner strength that you may not have even known existed. Courage reveals that you are much more than the doubts and insecurities you have experienced. This transformation does not happen overnight, but is a gradual process full of learning and discovery. Each time you overcome a fear, no matter how small, you expand your inner territory, opening space for new possibilities, new dreams, and new actions. You begin to realize that fear is not an enemy to be eliminated, but a messenger indicating where there is an opportunity for growth. It becomes a compass, helping you identify areas where you can strengthen yourself, improve, and connect more deeply with your values. Moreover, courage redefines your perception of failure and success. Instead of fearing mistakes, you start to see them as an essential part of learning. Every attempt, even if it does not achieve the expected result, is an opportunity to grow and refine your approach. This inner change resonates in your interpersonal relationships. You begin to express yourself more authentically, setting healthy boundaries and communicating your needs without fear of rejection or judgment. Your presence becomes stronger, inspiring, and you attract people who value who you truly are. At work, in your family, or in social circles, courage manifests in the ability to make difficult decisions, defend your ideas, and embrace challenges with confidence. You learn to trust your intuition and judgment more, creating a virtuous cycle of self-confidence and achievement. This transformation also extends to how you face life. By recognizing your potential and confronting your shadows, you develop a braver stance in the face of adversity. Challenges that once seemed insurmountable become natural steps on your path. It is important to remember that this renewed courage does not mean the absence of fear. Fear will still be present, after all, it is part of the human experience. But now, you have tools to coexist with it, to use its energy in your favor, and not let it paralyze your choices. By embracing fear and courage simultaneously, you reach a profound freedom. Freedom to be yourself, without masks or chains. Freedom to follow your dreams, even if they scare you. Freedom to live fully, consciously, and aligned with your truth. This is the essence of transformative courage, not an isolated act of bravery, but a daily practice of honesty with yourself and commitment to your own growth. And this practice never ends. It renews itself every day, in every decision you make to be more authentic, more present, and more courageous. So, celebrate every step you have taken so far. Acknowledge the strength that exists within you, even when it seems small. And know that by choosing courage, you are not only changing your life, you are inspiring everyone around you to do the same. Now, the question is, what will you do with this courage that already exists in you? Will you let fear dictate the rules, or will you embrace this inner flame, however flickering it may seem, and use it to light your way? Remember, courage is the key that opens the doors to transformation. It begins with a step, a decision, a simple, yet true, act. And that act is yours, today, right now. Do what you fear to do. Because it is there, in facing fear, that your freedom is born.